It just shows.
Wall Street stock futures are mixed ahead of the opening bell.
We're about ready.
NASDAQ and the S&P 500 hit record highs again.
I'm not ready. Can we postpone it an hour today?
Lawrence County depends on WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
And of course, we've made it to Friday, and it's time for Bulletproof Estate Planning with Stan Pierchoski.
Good morning, Jeff.
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good.
Well, good.
Trying not to melt.
We may. If you can stay in, I would stay in.
Tell you what, at lunchtime we like to go for a walk. Not just around the square, but a couple blocks bigger than that.
Oh,
just
yeah.
to get out, stretch, and it's hard right about now. It's oppressive. It's just oppressive.
Yeah.
You still need the exercise, but man, it's difficult. When your body burns a lot of calories just trying to stay cool if you're out in the heat. It really does. So, you got to be careful. I had a friend who was, I think if I remember right, he said he was cutting some wood or something in this a hot day like this, and
right.
just tried to power through it, and he ended up getting a stroke out of it. I mean, it's that worries me sometimes. So when I weed eat, my job is to weed eat. My wife, we have a big zero turn bad boy.
Oh yeah.
My wife does that, and I do the weed eating. But when I do the weed eating, I don't like getting bit by chiggers. Okay, so I wear long pants, I wear long sleeves, I wear a hat and gloves.
Yeah.
And when I weed eat in my creek, I have a creek that I like to keep the banks looking nice.
Yeah.
I'll put on like my boots, hip boots, come all the way up, so I can walk in the water and weed eat.
Yeah.
Well, as you can imagine, you get a little bit warm in that outfit.
Oh yeah.
So when I do that, when I start feeling, pretty warm, I'll walk back to the garage, and the garage I keep slightly air conditioned for the dogs. I keep it at about 75 or something like that.
Yeah.
Just so the dogs have a place to go, right?
Yeah.
I go in there and sit down for a while and drink a glass of water, and then I'll for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll go back out and do it. Sometimes when I'm weeding, I'll do that at least twice, because it takes me about 2 hours to weed everything. So I'll do that at least twice, and I'm just not going to take a chance. I'm just going to cool off and get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no sense powering through it and getting so hot, because that's just a brutal temperature for your body.
Yeah.
Your body temperature is barely a couple degrees more. Or right at. If you're 98.6 and it's 96 degrees like they're calling for today, you can't. It's difficult to discharge heat.
Yeah.
The only way to discharge heat is to sweat, and when it evaporates, the evaporation pulls away heat. But in the humidity, it doesn't evaporate. So the best way to do it is plunge into the pool or splash some cool water in your face from the creek or something.
Yeah.
But just don't take any chances with it. It'll pass. It does this every year. Whatever you can't get done in the heat, get up early in the morning and do. Or maybe, I notice when you get home, if the sun's down behind the trees, not really set yet, the temperature drops a good 10 or 12 degrees pretty quickly. So anyway.
Better to be safe than sorry, that's for sure.
My heat advice, if it's in
your heat advice. Yeah, not only legal advice, but heat advice.
There's one thing that I got a pet peeve about, and I know I need to talk about estate planning, but just real briefly. They talk about in the summer and in the winter. You always hear about this feels like, and whenever somebody says how hot's it going to be today, that's the number they always give. It's going to be 108 degrees today.
Yeah.
I said, no, it's not going to be 108 degrees. We're not in Bakersfield, California, in the middle of the desert. Okay? They said, well, that's the feels like temperature.
Yeah.
And, before I used to go to law school, I was an engineer. And the feels like temperature it doesn't mean it always feels that way. The actual temperature out there is the one you want to go by.
Yeah.
The feels like temperature just has to do with how rapidly you can lose heat. Like if you put 2 cups of coffee out on the deck railing.
Yes.
Like let's say it's cold, okay?
Yeah.
And they say, hey, it's 20 degrees out there, but it feels like 10.
Yeah.
Now, if you put 2 cups of coffee out there, and they're both the same cups of coffee, right? They're going to see the absolute temperature. They're not going to see the feels like.
Okay.
Now, if you put one out on there and you put another one someplace else where the wind is blowing at 10 miles an hour.
Yes.
They both have the same amount of energy to lose to freeze, right? Identical.
Yes.
But the one that has the air flowing will lose heat more rapid, because as it gives off heat, the air around it kind of works as an insulating blanket. But as it gives off heat, the wind kind of takes that away, and now there's a greater differential temperature from inside the cup to outside the cup all the time. Whereas the one that's not have the wind blowing on it, it doesn't.
Oh, that's interesting.
It doesn't see that. So the feels like depends on it depends on the rate of either losing heat on the summertime or the ability to retain it in the wintertime. So
Yeah.
I never pay attention to it feels like. I mean, I know it when it like a humid day, like I just said, if you get out and sweat and your sweat doesn't evaporate, that's how your body cools, because the evaporation is an exothermal process which sucks heat out of your body.
Yeah.
And as it evaporates, but if you're on a very humid day and it doesn't evaporate, that doesn't work. That's why the feels like gets so high, because on the exact same temperature day, if it were really dry like Arizona or something, the feels like would probably not exist. Because anyway, pet peeve of mine when my wife does that all the time. She's gonna be 109 degrees.
The
today.
wind chill. So that's where the wind chill factor.
That's exactly what the wind chill is. Yeah.
Yeah, the wind chill factor.
So the question is, if you're driving down the road, what temperature does your radiator see? You know, because it's got air blowing across it all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, it has to do with heat loss and wind, more surface area. Several things affect the rate of heat loss. Anyway, that's the engineer tip
So
for the day.
well, I learned a little something. Okay.
I mean, my wife does that. She was gonna be 110 degrees today. It's like, well,
It's going to feel like.
yeah. If it
So
really hit 110 degrees, I mean, that's like almost life threatening.
Yeah.
If you're in like you're in a desert where it can hit those kind of temperatures.
Wow.
But that's super dry heat.
That is. It really, really is.
Anyway, hey, we had a seminar last Saturday at the Star
Oh,
Theater,
that's right. You did.
and it was a banner crowd. I mean, we had like 66 people show up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like I was telling you off mic, a lot of engagement. I mean, I'll be pretty busy all the way up to the next seminar, which we do every other month now. And the next one we are going to do is the 20th, September the 20th. Saturday, we're going to do it over here again at WLX radio station, back of the building.
September 20th.
Yeah, that's the Saturday again. We do this at 10 o'clock and call it Will's Trust in the Nursing Home. That's what we talk about. And the one we just had, I had a lot of great questions. I was probably there over an hour answering questions. So it was a very interactive crowd. They were paying attention. They asked good, intelligent questions. You know, it was they were very appreciative of the information. They said they learned a lot. Several people came up to me afterwards and said, "Man, this is great. I thank you for doing this, because we learned a lot of stuff we didn't know," which is the typical response I get for these things. Works very well. And so that one was last Saturday, and again, like I said, we're going to do it again September the 20th here in Lawrence County.
Very good.
And we're still having some trouble. We kind of go up to Franklin up there that every once in a while, and we're still having some issues with the venue up there, and can't find a substitute one. So the girls are working on where we do them and when, and I know they're working on that, but we'll eventually end up back that way. Sometimes we go over to Marshall County or Lincoln County.
Yeah.
So we take the show on the road sometimes, but
Very good.
we kind of concentrate between Giles and Lawrence back and forth.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you hadn't come to one before, I mean, you might want to try it, because you learn a lot of cool stuff.
You really, really do.
And it's stuff that will really get your attention, because like I often say, when you're searching the internet, you feel like you don't have many options. You feel like, well, I guess all I can do is write a will. And that's not true. There's other things you can do. You hear me talk, over and over again about the possibility of a trust, which is an alternative to a will, and a much better alternative in my opinion. So there's different kinds of trusts that you can do. So we do a lot of that. So I'll bring that up again at the end of the hour, but if you want to call my office, set something up, 931-363-7222, and that's Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law, and we will sign you up for the seminar. And I was talking to Courtney, who's on my team, and she said that they already have a handful of sign-ups for the seminar.
Awesome.
So it's not too early to do it.
Awesome.
But it's a big venue, which helps. We don't have to worry about capping it or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, we'll bring that up again at the end of the hour. And had some, I think last week I told you about some banner news we had about a 10-care case that finally came through.
Yes.
And we had another one come through this week. And this one was problematic, but not near as rough as the one we talked about last week.
Right.
This one, and had some of the same problems. But, when that happens, and I kind of thought this was coming, because I spoke to somebody at 10-care and they pretty much said they were going to approve it. But I don't do anything until I get the paperwork in hand, because it has on times told me that, and next thing you know, it's not an approval, it's something else. And so I waited for it. It came in yesterday. And I never get tired of making the call to the family when I get that. Say, hey,
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that so-and-so's approval came in today. And I relayed that to the family, and the wife, I could tell she was tearing up pretty good. She said, thank you, because you know, this one took a little bit longer than normal, but not near as bad as that one. But anyway,
Yeah.
they were really happy. And then there was I think about less than 30 minutes later, I got a call from the son, and he just said, "I just want to call and thank you. I just talked to Mom." And so I never get tired of making that call.
That's a great feeling to
it
get
is.
when you've helped somebody.
It is great, and we relish in that. And there was there's one inconsistency with the approval, but it was pretty minor. Something we'll be able to work out. So
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's that. And you know, I always tell my clients, you know, when they call and say, "Have you heard anything yet?" or "I'm worried they're not going to approve," or something like that, or they've denied and we're appealing it. I always tell them, I said, just hang in there. I said, we'll get there. I promise, we'll get there. And so I've never failed to get anybody eligible yet. I said, sometimes it just takes longer, but we'll get there. Just hang in there.
Yeah.
And that's what they all say when
Yeah.
when I talk to them. I say, well, you said we'd get there, and we did. Here we are. So anyway, like I said, that's always a good feeling. I like making that call. So, and that's kind of what we talked about. You know, this seminar I do, Wills, Trusts, and the Nursing Home. We talk about do a little bit of a will versus a trust.
Yes.
And the reason I do that, I have a seminar I do, and I have a recorded version of it. It's called "How Not to Leave Your Family at Risk," or "Don't Leave Your Family at Risk," and that's kind of a deep dive between will versus trust. Okay, and sometimes I do that as a standalone seminar, but on the one we call Wills, Trust, in the Nursing Home, I do a quick review of what that is. I do a real quick run over of a will versus a trust, and the reason I do that is because this solution to long-term care is a trust. And if you're attending the seminar and you don't really have any exposure to a trust, that's why I like to do the quick review, so you get a feel for what a trust does compared to a will. And then when we talk about the solution to long-term care, it is a trust. And that way we've touched on it a little bit.
Sure.
And, you know, when I talk about the Asset Protection Trust, which is the one we're talking about, it just gets people's attention. And I mean, people come to me and they say they just had never heard anything was out there. And it just gets their attention so much. They want to hear more about it. Almost all the questions I get asked at the end of the seminar are about the trust, not necessarily will or versus trust questions. Every now and then I get one. One of the classic questions I get, well, if you do a trust, what happens if you already have a will? You know, which
Yeah.
a lot of people do. Or statistically, 18% of the people have a will.
Yeah.
Those are some common questions, but by far the questions that people ask is on the workings of the trust, because you know they got their money, they got their lifetime wealth, they want to protect it, but they also want to know how fluid it is to them to use.
Sure.
You know, because you have to give up a little bit of access to this property, but it doesn't mean you can't get at it or use it. You just have to
Certain ways you have
do
to
it
do
a
it.
certain way. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not as simple as just having complete unfettered access to it. Because if you have that, then you don't get the creditor protection. You know,
That's
it's,
right.
it's a fundamental nature of property law. If you want to protect it from creditors, you've got to give something up. And what you're giving up is the access to the principal. Now, you can still get to the principal. It's just not access when you do it, because access is a little more of a legal term.
Yeah.
There's a certain right you can exercise with this trust where you can gain access to get to the principal.
Yeah.
And so you can't just take it out and give it to yourself like you can on anything else.
Yeah.
So, and that's what gives us the creditor protection, because you cannot, you know, let's look at it this way. If you could just put your property in trust and it was protected from your creditors, you can just tell anybody you owe money to go pack sand because, hey, my property's in trust and you can't get at it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody would be a creditor. I mean, it's self-serving. It's
Sure.
self-serving to just put everything in trust and avoid valid creditors. If you have a valid creditor, it takes you have to give something up to avoid that creditor. And so that's what this is all about. There's a whole lot
Sure.
more to it than that, but you know, we touch on it from time to time on this show. I certainly talk about it at the seminar, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
one thing I want to bring up, because I get this question a lot, and in all honesty, I think I heard you on the radio talk about this on the hour before me about a year ago.
Okay.
It was a long time ago. But
Okay.
It was while we were doing this show. Though.
Okay.
We've been doing that for what, 2 years?
Yeah, I guess so.
2 years last May doing.
It's unbelievable
Or June.
how long we've really been
Yeah.
doing this.
But it's this concept of what's the difference between a revocable living trust and an irrevocable living trust.
Yes.
You know? And I actually heard you on the radio one time. Somebody asked the question, you or JLB or something. I don't know if it was you or him, but they said, well, I guess one's revocable and one isn't. and
Yes.
I may have talked about that day. I don't remember if I did or not, but I got the question
Yes.
yesterday, and I got that question during the seminar. And
Yes.
I want to set the record straight with that. And the reason I want to set the record straight is because the word irrevocable for a trust is an unfortunate name.
Yes.
Because would it surprise you if I told you that you can revoke an irrevocable trust? And your response is going to be, that's just legal double talk, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an it's an unfortunate name because our trust code, our uniform trust code, is very clear on how to revoke an irrevocable trust. So you can revoke it. Don't know where it got its name. Maybe if I have some time to waste, I'll look into it and see why. But I don't know how it got that name. But I'll give you the big difference between the two. The biggest difference between the two is that on an irrevocable trust, you, the maker of the trust, cannot be the beneficiary, because that's what gives us the creditor protection we want. Whereas in a revocable living trust, you're the maker of it, you're the trustee of it, and you can also be the beneficiary during
Yes.
the right times. But the asset protection trust, you can't be the beneficiary, because we are putting property in here, and we're keeping it in a position where we can't really get at it, and if we can't get at it, then our creditors can't get at it.
That's-
But when I say we can't get at it, it doesn't mean lost, gone forever, never see it again. It means can't get at it, where the get at is a specific way. It's a, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is that could be very confusing.
Yeah,
to,
it is,
to
and
folks.
that's why when I talk about it on the seminar or in my office, I have a whiteboard. In my seminar, I've got a PowerPoint presentation that is a diagram, and it's a physical or a visual reference. And you need that to talk about this. That helps a lot. So
Yeah.
when we talk about it on radio, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I do it on the radio, I'll say, okay, if you're really interested in hearing about this by talking on radio, go get a piece of paper and a pencil, blank sheet of paper.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you how to draw this. I'm going to tell you how to draw on this. I'm going to tell you what to do, what to write, where to draw the arrow to. And it's the stuff I do on my whiteboard if you were in my office and I was explaining it.
Yeah.
And then you get the visual there, but you'd have to do that at home, because when we talk about it, you talk about a diagram with just audio, it can be, the meaning can get confused.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And when you talk about trust, it's not that you can't understand it, but there are certain terms in trust law that are not common vernacular, right? I mean, so you got to get used to those. It's kind of like when you're talking about financial instruments, life insurance and stuff like that.
Sure.
It kind of has its own language in a way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But that revocable versus irrevocable is confusing.
Yep. And I don't know how I got that name. Like I said, I don't know if it's worth trying to figure it out, because I don't know. But it also doesn't mean you can't change it.
But your irrevocable trust, you said you cannot be the creator cannot be the beneficiary or the trustee.
They could be the trustee.
It can be the
They can
trustee.
be the trustee.
But you
They
can't
be the beneficiary. That's right.
Okay. Okay.
That will taint the creditor protection, because now you have
So
access to it.
if you want to get into this, you may not. But if you want to get into this, if you put your let's say you have a bank account with an amount of money, and that money is put into an irrevocable trust. But down the road, I have a need, and maybe the car is gone, and I need to buy a new car.
Let's talk about a real life example.
Yeah.
You got $100,000 in the bank.
Yes.
Nice round number.
Yeah.
That's not the real example. That's just a nice easy number for radio.
Nice easy number. Yeah.
And one of the trustors, one of the makers of the trust, needs a new $26,000 wheelchair.
Yeah.
One for somebody who's quadriplegic that you can control with your breath. Got some nice lithium batteries in it. All the bells and whistles.
Yeah. Wow.
And they need that.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what we want. I'm assuming your question is going to be, how do you get at it?
Yeah. How would that work?
What we don't want to have happen, let's start with that first. What we don't want to have happen is we don't want the money, okay, the bank accounts in the asset protection trust, you said that. We don't want to take the money out of the trust and send it straight to the maker of the trust. So if the maker of the trust is the husband and wife,
Yeah.
and husband needs a wheelchair, what we do not want to happen is money come directly out of that trust and go to him. And then he goes and buys the wheelchair.
Yeah.
That is access to the principal, because it came right out of the trust and went to him. And we don't want that, because if you have that, if you can just take the money out and give it to yourself, that makes it a countable asset. When
Yeah.
we talk about countable assets,
Yeah.
now when you talk about countable assets, if you can't grasp the concept of the word countable asset, just insert the words available for cost of care asset. And so that's certainly available, so that makes it a countable asset.
Right.
When you put it into an asset protection trust, and the trust says you, the trustor, have no access to the principal, now it's a non-countable asset, because you can't get at it. If somebody says, give give me some money out of that bank account. Or suppose the wheelchair people say, you can pay me out of that $100,000 bank account. The answer, you shrug your shoulders and say, I can't, I mean, I don't have any authority to
Right.
access it. So the question is, how do we use money in that bank account to buy the wheelchair? Well, we exercise something, when you do an asset protection trust, you have certain trustor retained rights. The way we're gonna get out of there, it's not access. Access is a legal term. So it's not access, it's not indirect access. We are exercising a right. And the trustor retained right is called the unlimited lifetime distribution of principal to a class of people, which in 99% of the cases, that class of people are descendants, which would be all your kids and all your kids' kids and on, right?
Yeah,
And so, that doesn't mean you have to give stuff to all these people. These are just all the people you have to choose from when you wanna do this.
Okay.
So, you can distribute, and this is a real life example, you know, we needed this wheelchair, and so we distributed the property out of the trust to his son. Now, and we made like a record of that, or a paper trail, I guess might be a word, that we exercised our unlimited lifetime distribution of principal right to anybody in this class of people, and the son was in that class, so we just distributed it to him, okay?
okay,
Now, one thing to keep in mind now, and so it didn't go to the trustor, it went to somebody else,
yeah,
okay? Now, that distribution of that money ownership is complete. When you distribute it to him, it belongs to the son. This is very important for people to understand.
okay,
It belongs to him, and because it belongs to him, he can do whatever he wants to do with it, right?
okay.
If he wants to, he can drive over to Tunica and put the whole wad on red 23 and see what happens, right? Because it belongs to him. You know,
Okay.
I make a silly example, but I mean, he can do whatever he wants. A foolish thing, a wise thing, it belongs to him, he can do whatever he wants, right? Now, included in the realm of whatever he can do with it, he can go buy that wheelchair and give it to his dad.
Okay,
So, in other words, the money's been distributed and he gets to use it for his benefit.
yes,
And that's how. Now, still, the trustor never had access to it. Because these trusts have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
They became kind of popular back in the mid-60s when the Medicaid Act came out.
okay,
And so in the late 60s and early 70s, the courts have thrashed out a lot of cases on this, okay? And in a nutshell, what our courts have said is that if the document says the maker of the trust has no access, and it has to say it in very strong, no nonsense words,
right,
and when you distribute it to this class of people, they cannot be obligated to turn around and use it on their behalf. If those two things are there, the courts will uphold creditor protection. Don't.
wow,
And it works like a champ. Now, I have had, when people try to get eligible for TennCare and they have this trust, TennCare will usually ask for the trust. And some people say, well, how do they know I have it? Well, here's how they know they have it. They do their own basic asset search when you're trying to become qualified, okay? And they look in the different records, and they certainly look in the property records, and they'll see your house, and they'll see it's titled to this asset protection trust, right?
right,
And so they'll say, hey, I see that the applicant has an asset protection trust. Can we see that trust, please? And you have to give it to them, because if you say no, they'll deny you for failure to respond to their request, right? And so we send it to them, and I know exactly what they're looking for. They're looking
Right.
for the concept of access to principal. I know exactly where in the trust they're going to look for it. Now, they won't find it in mine, but there are some folks out there that do like my wife says, stay out of their lane a little bit, or get out of their lane a little bit. And they
Yeah.
write these trusts when they don't really understand all the nuances that need to be in them. And I've seen a trust where somebody put in the trust that says, if I ever distribute it to any of these people in this class of people, they have to use it on my behalf. And so, well, if I was a TennCare attorney, I'd look at that and say, well, that's access.
uh-huh,
And I tell people to memorize something in my seminars. I say, if you can get access to an asset, so too can your creditors.
okay,
So if that's the case, if it's okay, well, that's access to that. Therefore, me, TennCare, now I have access to the property in the trust because you do.
yeah, interesting,
And there was another one. This is an actual court case that I read from the very early '70s. Some people had an asset protection trust. They put a lot of property. These are the things that make it to court, very large amounts of money, right? Things that go on in Lawrenceburg or Pulaski don't
Yeah.
make it to the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in this neck of the woods, but they put a lot of property in this trust, and they put some language in the trust that said, if my wife or I, who are the makers of the trust, if either of I have some sort of catastrophic illness where we absolutely positively need to get at the property in the trust, life or death situation, that kind of thing. I don't know. I can't even think of an example. Let's say you
Right.
get some weird disease and the cure is in Finland and it costs $500,000.
Yeah.
It's a life or death thing. they wouldn't be able to get it. Well, the courts looked at that and said, that is access, and that's exactly what it is. It's a,
Oh, boy.
you know, right? Because you're saving a way to get to it.
Yes.
And the law says in order to get credit protection, you be in no uncertain term, no access to it. The way we say it, you have no access to it. The trustee is prohibited from giving any principal to the trustor. And so here's what happened in that court case, because it was very interesting. And so the argument now was, the court definitively said that instrument gives, it's called a no any circumstances test. They said if there's any circumstances in which the trustor can get at the principal, then his creditor can get there. Then they said the circumstance they created was if we ever have a catastrophic illness and need to get at it.
Yeah.
So it fit the any circumstances test. Now, the defendants came back and said, but wait a minute, we never had a catastrophic illness. We never used it. We never did take anything out of the trust.
Yeah.
And here's the part you got to remember. And here's why the trust has to be written right. And here's why if you're going to do this, you need to go to somebody, go to me or somebody like me that knows exactly how to do what I'm about to say. Now the court said, yes, you never used it, but you could have.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could have, we're going to assume you exercised it to the full extent of what you could have done, which is get at all the property in the trust.
Mm-hmm.
You see how damaging that can be to put this in. So that's why when you read my trust, you think, and it says no access, no way, under any circumstances, not a zip, no way, Jose, the trustee can't give it to you. When you read mine, you get tired of seeing where it says, trustor doesn't get access. I even have an enabling clause that says, no access to principal, and if there's anywhere in this trust that looks like it's access for principal, this enabling clause says it's not.
Yes.
And you read it and you think, this is just over the top language. You know what? It needs to be.
Yeah.
It needs to say no access. The court says if there's any circumstances there that let you get at it,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm an engineer, so I'm a stickler for things.
Yeah.
You know, and I struggled, a couple of years back, I struggled over the concept, if there's a paragraph in there, sometimes you can, if you name somebody as the trustee, and the maker of the trust can be the trustee, you know, in most trusts, you like to put a paragraph there that if the trustee needs to be compensated, he can be. It's like, just general language, like a reasonable compensation.
Yeah.
You know, I looked into that, and I couldn't find a definitive answer, but for many years now, I have language in that area of the trust that talks about compensation to the trustees. So the trustee can be compensated if he's not the trustor. Because if he's the trustor, the compensation has to come from the principal, and we will not allow that to happen because that's a circumstance in which they can get. I mean, I probably got 1,000 hours in perfecting this trust, and those are the kind of things you got to think about.
Interesting.
And you know, and so unfortunately for those folks, so the courts are very clear. The instrument's got to say no access, and the people you can distribute it to are not obligated to turn around and use it. So when TennCare asks for this trust, like I said, we send it to them. They look to see if that's what they're looking for, access to principal. And like I said, they won't find it in mine, but in some they do. Actually, a lot they do.
Yeah.
And so they can be like this. Suppose they say this: hey, I see where the trustor or the trustee distributed $26,000 out. Remember that, talking about the wheelchair unit.
Yeah.
I see where the trustee distributed $26,000 out of this trust. Where did it go? And my response would be, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you. We exercised our unlimited right of distribution of principal, so that was principal, and distributed it to a member of the class's people, and the class was descendants, and they gave it to the son. So that's what we did with it, and it's well documented. Well, the next question they'll ask is, well, what did the son do with it? And my response is, well, the courts have said you really can't inquire on that because ownership was complete with the son. So it really doesn't matter to you or anybody what he did with it. He could have taken out the backyard and torched it. He could have gone to Tunica, put it on Red 23.
Yeah.
He could have invested it. Why? He could do anything he wanted. It's beyond your inquiry what he did with it. But since you asked, he bought a wheelchair and gave it to his father. But that's what he did with it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing they can do about that. The courts are clear. That's a classic, perfect use of it. Okay, so
That's awesome.
you know, and it has to be done right. There's so much more to it than what I'm saying. You know, I'm just kind of
Yeah.
giving the whiteboard presentation as best I can.
Yeah. I see. I see.
So when you have the property, a lot of folks feel if I put something in an irrevocable trust, I'll never see it again. I can't use it. It's gone forever. Don't get at it. It's just money I can never touch again. And that is not so. If it were so, then this wouldn't be a very good tool to get yourself eligible for TennCare. Because the beauty of it is we put big assets into this trust. the real estate.
Yes.
A brokerage account that's got a lot of money and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Because the very moment you put property into an asset protection trust, you deed the property, the very moment it goes in there, you have changed its posture from a countable asset to a non-countable asset.
Yes.
Why? Well, when we have $100,000 in the bank and it's in our name, and the nursing home says you can pay us out of that bank account, the answer is yes. And they'll expect you to take the money out of there and pay them, or they won't give you the service. I don't blame them. But if you put it into an asset protection trust, they say you can pay us out of that bank account. You just kind of look at them and say, I can't. I don't have access to it.
Right.
It's prohibited. I can't get at it. Now, it's when I said if you countable versus non-countable, insert the words available for cost of care. Once you put it into the trust, it's not available for the cost of care. You cannot directly take money out of it and pay it.
Exactly.
Now, what we could do if we have to, and this happens from time to time, if we have to pay something for medical or long-term care or whatever, we can distribute it to a child, and the child can go pay the bill. So we can get the bill paid if it's a true bill and we have to pay it. But it's the concept of I say if you can get access to an asset, so too can your creditors. Or refine it a little easier and say if you can get at it, they can get at it.
Right.
So this kind of creates a situation where we can't get at it, but we can get at it. It's just a way to get at it. When we get at it, it has to be that way. Anything else is going to fail on the any circumstances test.
It's a pretty slick thing, really.
It is. I mean, it's been around for a long time. These trusts are not uncommon. They became common when Medicaid came out in 1965. As a matter of fact, what day is the 31st?
It'll be on a Thursday, I believe.
Next week, yeah. 29th, I think, is Tuesday, 30. Yeah, so it's Thursday. So next week on the 31st, the Medicaid Act will be 60 years old.
Yes.
And it's still not understood. It's still widely misunderstood. Just go look some stuff up on the internet. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway, it'll be 60 years old. And you know, I talked on a couple of shows ago about the effect of the new legislation on it, which really doesn't change much of anything as far as what we do. So anyway,
Quite interesting. Quite interesting stuff, actually.
The thing is, if you're worried about long-term care or the cost of it, because that's the concern, the high cost of it. You know, the average around here in small town Tennessee
Yes.
it's like $330 a day, which is, depending on whether it's 30 days or 31 days, is $10,000 a month.
Wow.
And you know, there was 3 increases just in 2024.
Really?
So it's going to go up some more. Now, I have a gentleman that drove to my office, and I met with him yesterday from up north of Nashville, in Gallatin up there. It's a little higher up there. It's like $13,000 a month, and that's because of the city, the
Sure.
high metropolitan cost of living, and you know, all those things that affect.
Sure.
And so it's very expensive. And if you're worried, if you or your spouse are going to end up in care and it's going to exhaust your estate, most people's estate has an end in sight when you're taking out $10,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's finite. There's only so much water in the well. I mean, if you're independently wealthy and you can afford to do that for 10 years, I mean, God bless you, then you may not have to ever deal with this. But the average people are not. And I don't get estates like that around here. You know, I get people who have spent their life amassing their wealth, and it is whatever it is. You know, I don't put a number on it because whatever it is what you've created.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you want to protect as much of it as you can because you and your spouse have spent your lifetimes doing that, and you don't want to lose it all to the cost of care.
And in a lot of cases, I think you'll probably agree with me that for our neck of the woods, the bulk of a lot of people's wealth is their real estate.
Yep. I mean, that's usually the lion's share of the estate.
Yeah.
For the average person.
So how does that work?
Same thing.
It's same thing. You put it into the.
Put in the trust, and you're really not going to be distributing portions of that. Although
Yeah.
we have distributed acreage that way, because
Yeah.
property is property. You can distribute it out the back door. But usually when we do that, you distribute it to a child, and it stays with the child. There never is this expectation they're going to turn around and use it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And you can do that all day long.
So it's actually cleaner.
yeah.
Than,
Well, it's cleaner is a good word.
yeah.
And actually, that solves the gifting problem that people have. You know, we got some people that give property to their kids or their grandkids every Christmas. I think I've talked about this before.
Yes.
And if you do that, they're going to sum all those up in the last 5 years of whenever you applied. And you're going to say, but wait a minute, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if it's foreseeable you were going into the nursing home in the last 5 years, they'll classify those as gifts. Now,
Yeah.
if you can prove that you did it for an entirely different purpose, which is a tough road to hoe, I think. I was successful with it one time, but I don't know if I could be again.
Yeah.
But here's the way to do it. If you put the property in trust, then you can distribute money to these children every year, and it doesn't affect it. It doesn't start a new time period at all, because you were on the hook when you put it in the trust in the first place for 5
Right.
years.
Right.
So every year you give it out. Those aren't gifts from you. They're gifts
So
from the
even though you had this amount of money that you want to gift every year in a trust, you still can do it out of the trust.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's
And
not
not
locked.
worry-
It's not locked where it can't be
That's right.
accessed.
And not worry about it. You know, classic example, and I've done this a couple of times. Somebody would call me and say, "Hey, I did the asset protection trust, and I got this 100 acres that we live on. And there was just 10 acres I was always going to give to my daughter.
Yes.
You know, I had in the trust that when I pass away, this 10 acres goes to her because she always wanted that. Well, she wants to build on it now.
Yeah.
And she can't get a loan from the bank because they won't loan you money to build a house on land you don't own.
Yeah.
And it's not the daughter's land yet.
Right.
Right? And I get that. And so he says, we'll look at it, how long we've been in the trust, and if they've been in there a couple of years. I'll say, sure, we can do that. We can just do a deed for that 10 acres. You can distribute it out what we call the back door, exercising that right to her, and it stops with her because she's going to keep it.
So it's deeded from the trust.
Yeah, absolutely. It's property. Property can come out of the trust. But
Right.
you don't typically use a hunk of a piece of property when you need cash or something like that.
Right.
So, and it's not unusual that the only thing in these trusts around here is the home or all the real estate. Some people
Right.
have a home and maybe another piece of real estate or so. But we always get the real estate in there because they are big ticket items.
Right.
Hey, just as I forgot, we never did give the phone-in number, and we still have a few minutes if
We
somebody
do.
wants to call. So.
Yeah, if someone does want to call, 766-9393 if you have questions for Stan or like a comment on what we've talked about this morning. I don't know if I turn the ringer up.
We still got about 45 minutes, so
yeah,
it's time to make a call.
Yeah, that's me turning the volume up on the
Yeah.
ringer. 766-9393. And Stan would be glad to field questions or take comments.
And we apologize for that. We were supposed to give that out in the beginning. but
We
it's
always
just-
forget. We get
on to
started
something.
talking.
Yeah, we get on to something. And we can't multitask, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Of course, it's Bulletproof Estate Planning with Stan Pierchoski and Pierchoski Estate Law, located in Pulaski, Tennessee.
And the concept of these trusts for 10-care, you know where it's written that's okay to do this? In the 10-care Act. So when I do this, people come up to me and say, well, this is just your idea of what'll work. I said, absolutely not. It's not my idea of what'll work. It's in the code on things you can do to protect your assets.
That's amazing. Actually.
It is. You ever heard the word spend down?
I have.
People say, you get too much money.
Oh, yeah.
Your wife goes in the nursing home. You get too much money. You need to spend it down.
Spend down.
And how do you interpret that when you hear the word spend down? What does that mean to you? Or the average person here?
Well, I think for the most of us, it just means that they want to get rid of their funds.
You want to get rid of it, or give it away,
Give it
or
away,
spend it, or-
spend it, do something with it.
Spend down is a legal term. It doesn't mean that. It actually means recategorize your property. Remember I say when you talk about $2,000 of countable assets, and I say it doesn't mean $2,000 to your name, which
Yeah.
is how everybody takes it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if it meant $2,000 to your name, who doesn't have $2,000?
Yeah.
I mean, in reality.
Yeah.
I mean, even the bum outside my office that pulls cans out of the trash. Now, I don't mean to be condescending, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
even an indigent person that picks up cans probably got $2,000.
Yeah.
Okay? So if that's the case, how can anybody ever get qualified for a nursing home?
Yeah.
Shouldn't they all be empty if that was what it meant?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that. It means $2,000 of countable assets. Countable is a category.
Yes.
So we recategorize the property. That's what a spend down is. All my clients that hire me with all their wealth to be protected, we spend down their money. We don't spend it, we change it from countable to non-countable.
Yes.
Remember I said, if you can't be eligible if you have more than $2,000 of countable assets, right?
In our minds, Stan, spend downs mean you're getting rid of it.
That's
And
right.
you don't have it. But that's not the case.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. You want to recategorize it.
Yes.
So remember I said, one time I said, okay, my engineering mind and legal mind that sounds like this. If somebody says you can't be eligible unless you have less than $2,000 of countable assets, my first question is, is there anything other than countable assets? And the answer is yes, we have non-countable. There's several categories of non-countable. So then my next question is, okay, if I want to be eligible for 10-care, could I have less than $2,000 of countable assets, but could I have 500,000 of non-countable assets and still be eligible? The answer is yes, because the only asset that they use in the calculation of eligibility is countable. That's how we save it. And where does that concept come? It's not first Pierchoski 14 in some kind of chapter and verse that I've written. It's in the 10-Care Act.
Right.
The Medicaid compliant annuities we talk about. You know, I think we did something like that with your father.
That's right.
And that comes right out of the Deficit Reduction Act that we had, of 2005, that Tennessee adopted in 2006. It clearly says that you can take if you have a sum of money, you can gift away a portion of it and retain a portion to purchase the Medicaid compliant annuity to pay for the penalty period you created when you gifted that other portion away.
Yeah.
It used to have a name called a half a loaf theory because it was roughly half and half. I mean, it's a little bit better than that. It's more like 70-30, but you know, that comes out of the Deficit Reduction Act. I don't make anything up. I don't come up with a plan and say, you know, I don't do like the guy across the street, the advice he gives to you. He says, you gotta hurry up and deed your property to your kids so they can't get at it.
Right.
And then people act on that. They actually act on Joe's advice across the street.
Yep.
And, you know, if you're heading for a nursing home, and you know, you heard me talking about giving stuff away, that's the very worst thing you could do if you're that close to going into care.
Yes.
Is give it away. Anyway, so that's why we have the seminars, that's why I do the radio show. I mean, you have got a lot of options. I think a lot of the stuff you've heard or research on the internet, you're
Yes.
finding out that maybe that's not the best way to go. And so now you're maybe even more confused as to what you can do.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so stick with somebody that knows how it works, because there's a lot of things you can do, and they're very powerful tools. This asset protection trust is a grand, powerful tool. It's underutilized, in my opinion. I mean, we do them all the time, but I'm just one guy that does them, right?
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if we put much of a dent in it, but they work very well. They have to be written well.
Yeah.
But when they're written well, they are powerful tools. So to write them well, you have to understand the rules. And the rules to the trust are not in 10-Care. They talk about they call it the income only trust. They talk about, or sometimes you'll people call it just an irrevocable 5-year trust. They're talking about all that 5-year rule and stuff like that. But it is or a Medicaid asset protection trust is a common term you'll hear from it. That doesn't come from 10-Care. That comes from trust law or common law jurisprudence. But 10-Care will recognize that as a place you can put property to make it non-countable. Just has to be there for 5 years. I mean, it's non-countable the day we put it in there, but they can impose a penalty period if you put it in there in the last 5 years of asking for care.
Yes.
So you know, that 5-year thing is always haunting us as a government-imposed period that we're stuck with.
Right.
There's actually a couple ways to make that time period work for you, but they're unique. But anyway, so that trust is a very powerful tool. We do quite a few of them.
Well, we've emphasized this a lot as far as the timing and how, you know, this is so easy to put this off, and it would be, and I've seen it with estates and families where the properties are, you know, where they have it planned. Where they just have it planned. And we don't like to think about the unexpected or the time coming when, you know, our assets are going to be someone else's.
Yep.
But it's a fact of life, and so we might as well face that. And if you can plan for it and do it now, there's so much advantage. And consult with someone like yourself who has the knowledge, the skills, knows the law, and can set your system up, set your assets up in a way that you are that things will happen the way you want them to.
You know, the things that remind you to do this, everybody procrastinates, including myself.
Yeah.
I often give that story about, you know, how long I've been a practicing attorney before I even wrote my own will.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, huh?
Yeah.
And I did that at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, right before my wife and I were going on vacation, leaving the 3 minor kids with Grandma. So I'm talking about waiting the last minute. You know, you're in good company if you are, but what gets people's attention on this is if something happens in their family, somebody
Yes.
gets sick, has a stroke, heart attack, stuff like that, or if it happens to somebody else that they know. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not quite in your own backyard, but it's like, oh shoot, you know, if something like that happens, we don't have anything ready. The other thing I noticed that's starting to make people think about this is when they hear me discuss this and I have these seminars and they say, oh, somebody's willing to talk about this. That kind of sparks their interest in getting on the estate planning wagon, right?
Right.
Because I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, we've been wanting to do this for years. We just can't find what we're supposed to do. And now we feel like we have a clear direction.
Right.
I often say procrastination comes from uncertainty of what to do.
Yes.
Let's take the stock market. Let's say we're gonna, I don't know, you're gonna put some money down on Apple,
Right.
something. And if you absolutely positively knew what it was gonna do, I mean, you wouldn't hesitate to make the trade.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you don't know if it's gonna go up, don't know if it's gonna down, you hesitate, let me watch it a little longer, see if it keeps going up, let me watch it
Yes.
a little more, if it keeps going down. And the same thing with this, they think, well, I don't know what options I have, I don't know what I can do, I don't know anything about wills or trusts, and I don't know what I can do, what I can't do, then you procrastinate, because you don't feel confident moving forward.
Right.
So the way to get over procrastination is understand these options. One of them will fit your family dynamics perfectly, that's usually the case, and then go with it. Now you feel confident that this is a pretty good plan, and it's not hard to move forward with it. And I don't say it on this show, but in one of my other radio shows and some of my literature, I sort of have a byline where I say, doing nothing creates a predictable result.
Yes.
And if you don't know anything, I'll tell you exactly how it's gonna happen. You won't like it, but I'll tell you exactly what will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and so if that's the case, and it's not what you want to have happen, the thing is, now we have to do something to make it happen the way we want. It's affirmative, it's kind of like an affirmative defense.
There's a lot
Something
of
has to be done.
And gosh, there's a lot of power in that, because you can make those decisions and plan for that inevitable, and things can go so smoothly for your family.
I have done enough of these that many of them have matured, and the people that are the successor trustees will call me and stuff. And I talked to somebody just this week that, it was almost a 100% success story. She talked to me and said, her dad had passed away. And I remember when I got the call that he passed away, and we had a little discussion on, you just need to distribute the assets in the trust the way the trust says to do it. You, the successor trustee, you have all the authority. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to do anything. You just, when you deal with these institutions, you just have to show them the documentation that makes you the successor trustee, and you may have to prove that the trustor is deceased, but then, once you do that, they'll recognize your authority. And did everything, and it was a, mediocre estate, average estate, and got everything distributed, but there was like 50 shares of, I can't remember what the stock was, Walmart or something like that.
Yeah.
That he just never got around to putting into his name, and it was in his individual name.
Okay.
So everything passed probate free, but now we're stuck with this asset. And so what we're going to do is, in a trust plan, we have a plan B. It's called a pour-over will. It's a special kind of will. It's not a will that says, my kids get this, and I give this to my buddy down the street, and I give this to the church. A pour-over will says, hey, I've got this trust. I put everything into the trust. It was my intention to put everything I own into this trust. But if there's something I forgot, neglected, or otherwise overlooked, this wills it to the trust, which means the only beneficiary of a pour-over will is the trust. Now, it is a probate instrument, but usually when we get to probate, when there's a single asset that hasn't been carried over, we can utilize one of our abbreviated forms of probate, and it goes pretty quickly. That's what was happening in this case. So we had to go into probate, move the stocks to the trust, and then the trust distributed the stocks.
Interesting.
We did that pretty quick. It wasn't like a year-long probate or anything like that. So,
Well, that's an interesting little cover there.
the 100% goal would have been had he changed ownership from him, John Doe, to John Doe, trustee of his trust. Like he did everything else. Now that's a clear case of just forgetting you had it and forgot to do it. I'm sure there was no intention. So I'm going to leave these untitled to the trust. I doubt for a minute that was the decision. I think it's just I had these Walmart stocks since
Hadn't thought about
the
it.
60s or something, or when Walmart began. I don't know, but he just forgot he had it. Maybe thought about it once, but wasn't sure how to do it. In which case, I would say, "Hey, call me. We'll help you get them transferred. I can't transfer them for you, but I'll help you get them transferred."
Yeah.
And that's usually not hard to do. But it's not uncommon that something gets forgotten. That's what the pour-over will is. I often tell people, when you have a pour-over will, plan A is for it to be a waste of paper and a waste of ink. Have nothing to transfer. But if something gets dropped and falls through the crack, it'll catch it. It's a safety net. It'll catch it and send it to the trust. We got to do a little something in probate to do it, but it's usually relatively painless.
That's interesting.
I mean, all the what ifs. I often tell people when I'm talking to them, when I'm sitting around my conference table.
I was going to ask you, is all of that just in there? And I'm sure it is. But do you have a list of things that you would cover? Just when you're going through and meeting with someone.
At this point, I tended to go through that list in my head.
Yeah.
Because everybody's kind of different.
It's hard to think of everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But you've thought of everything. You see.
Well, I try. I mean, when you do it a lot, it's easy to keep up with it all. So, anyway.
Very interesting.
So like I said, when I talk to people, I often say on my side of the table, it's about what if. and I can what if stuff to death. I can what if it way better than you can. I can come up with scenarios that you sit here and go, never would have thought of that one.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of us write off the what ifs as if, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
What if this?
By saying that,
I do this,
guarantees it's gonna
and
happen.
listen, I'm experienced at this because my wife asks me what ifs all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, that's never gonna happen.
By saying that, make sure it's gonna happen.
Yeah, so,
That's called
well,
Murphy.
what if this, Jeff? What if this guy? And I said, no, we're not gonna worry about that. So you have to.
Let me finish up. I'm looking at the clock. Let me finish up, say a half a minute on Star Theater.
Okay.
They're right beside my office in downtown square of Pulaski. And I mentioned this before, but tonight, Friday night, is the opening night of Bye Bye Birdie.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you haven't heard the story about, some people say, hey, what's playing? I say Bye Bye Birdie. Well, I'm not gonna come to that, I've never heard of it. To me, that would be a reason to go to it, right?
Yeah.
Some people say, well, I'll go to Greece or I'll go to the Wizard of Oz 50 times, but I'm not gonna go to something I've never heard of. It makes me wonder, well, how did you ever get the Wizard of Oz the first time?
Yeah.
But it's a grand show. It's staged in the 50s like an Elvis Presley kind of
Yes,
singer.
yes.
And he's going off and he's got a fan club of girls and he wants the last kiss for his departure. And his name is Birdie and Bye Bye Birdie. And it's a musical and the actors have worked very hard and they singing and dancing and the leads are some of our seasoned actors and they're doing a wonderful job. So that opens tonight. So it's Friday and Saturday night at 7 o'clock, today and tomorrow. And then Sunday at 2 o'clock matinee. And then the following weekend, the first and second is Friday, Saturday at 7 o'clock. And the third is 2 o'clock matinee on that Sunday.
Yeah.
Tickets are still available for opening night. I don't know about tonight, but you can call, you can go to startheater.org. You call my office and we'll put you in touch with Miss Tammy or somebody that can get the tickets.
Yeah.
But you can get them online.
Yeah.
And it's a great show. So
Now, are you participating in this?
I'm not in. I didn't have much of anything to do with this. There was some stuff on the set that they were having some trouble with that I helped with. But other than that, I'm pretty much an observer this time. Now, I don't know what night I'm gonna watch it, maybe tomorrow night or something like that. But
I've actually seen the movie.
I don't know that I've seen the movie, but I know the story. I think I have seen it.
There was a movie, Bye Bye Birdie, way back when, so yeah.
So anyway, if you want to come to my seminar September the 20th, here at the WLX radio station, call my office at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law. And the phone number is 931-363-7222. And my website is estateplanstand.com.
That's right.
Sign up for something or give me a call and we'll talk about what you need to talk about.
Stan Pierchoski, everybody, our guest on Fridays, and he'll be back next Friday, good Lord willing. Thanks for coming in again today, buddy.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time. It's close.
This is WTNC.